one of the classes that you have to take to be a philosophy major is called Logic and Reasoning. And the cool thing about this class is that it is one of the only college courses, it may be the only college course, that counts for language, math, and humanities credits. So if you take this class, you literally get credit for all of those things. You don't have to take 3 different classes. It counts for all of those. It's kind of a good idea. It's really hard. Me and my friend Heather Bradshaw, hi Heather, spent a lot of time at the TA's office when we were taking this class. But I'm gonna try and just in a little tiny couple minutes tell you the things that you know so you can survive the next 3 weeks without being intellectually lazy. And that is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna talk about logical fallacies. The first one that everybody seems to say a lot, like they know what it is and they're making sense, is the slippery slope. So that's what I'm gonna start with. This is one that I shouldn't, but do use with my kids, and I should try and stop doing it. It is when you take a mild negative consequence and you tie it to an extreme negative consequence, like it's just a foregone conclusion. For example, I do this with one of my kids. I'm not gonna say who. Anybody who knows my kids knows which one. I say, do your homework. He says, I'll get to it later. I say, if you don't do your homework, you're going to fail your test. If you fail your test, you're gonna fail the class. If you fail the class, you're gonna fail high school. If you fail high school, you won't get into college. If you don't get in college, you won't get a good job, and you're gonna end up homeless. Therefore, if you don't do your homework, you're gonna end up homeless. Obviously, there's a lot of steps between homework and homelessness, but a lot of people do this. They will use one small little thing that could be happening, one negative thing, and they're going to jump 18 steps to like the worst possible scenario. And it's called the slippery slope, and it's happening a lot right now in all areas of the world, and it's something to be aware of. If my kid doesn't do his homework, will he end up homeless? Probably not. So anything that looks like that you see, just kind of try and go, okay, there's a lot of steps between homework and homelessness. Mary told me that. The next one is called the red herring. This is one where people use an argument that seems to be relevant to an issue, but is not relevant to an issue to try and distract. A lot of times when they're losing an argument, but it could be done for other reasons. So you could be talking to, like my sister Rachel, she's not on social media, so she won't see this, but maybe her kids will. She was vegetarian for a long time. And my family would like give her grief about it. And we would try and explain to her, like, why don't you just eat some meat? Like, eat some meat. There's nothing too bad about eating meat. And she held to her guns for a long time, and she was vegetarian. If we were to use a red herring argument, we would say, well, Rachel, Hitler was a vegetarian, and he was a bad person. So therefore, if you're a vegetarian, you're a bad person because you believe like Hitler about meat. And like we would win the argument with that. You distract from the argument at hand, which would be that she has chosen not to eat meat for various reasons. She had good reasons for that. But we would get angry and we would try and win the argument by going out into left field and bringing up Hitler. Anytime people use, well, Hitler did this, Hitler was right-handed, or Hitler ate meat, or whatever, it's usually a red herring because it probably has nothing to do with what you're arguing about. So we see this a lot in the media right now, or in public discourse. A lot of people throwing people off the argument at hand by throwing out something that has nothing to do with the issue at hand, but makes people feel a certain kind of way. An example of this that I do, that I should not, is if I am in an argument with anybody and I may not be winning, like I feel like I should, I will bring up their grammar. If they make a grammatical error in their speech or use a word incorrectly, instead of admitting that I'm wrong in an argument, or I should say sorry, I will say, oh, that's not how you use that word. Do you even know what that means? And that's another example of a red herring. So let's not fall into that trap. The next one would be, logical fallacy would be appeals to bandwagon, authority, and pity. So we'll start with, this is when you're trying to make an argument, and to make it seem like you know what you're talking about more, or you have more support, or you're right, you appeal to authority, the bandwagon, or pity. So for an example, if you were doing the authority argument, you could say, Michael Jordan says that Wheaties are the best breakfast that you could eat. Therefore, Wheaties are the best breakfast you can eat because Michael Jordan is the best and he knows. So therefore, Wheaties are the best breakfast you can eat. Not a sound logical argument, but people are like, oh yeah, Wheaties must be the best because Michael Jordan says so. That would be an appeal to authority. The next would be an appeal to pity. An appeal to pity would be like if a kid were to go to their high school teacher and say, I better get an A on this test or this paper or assignment because I studied for it or I wrote it during, the day that my grandma died. Therefore, I deserve an A on this because of that. Not sound logically, but oh yeah, you're right. That would be hard. I should maybe be more lax on my grading. The next one would be appeal to the majority or the bandwagon. This one would be like, everybody that I know gives their kid a cell phone at 8, smartphone. So that's what you should do. That's the right thing to do because everybody I know does it, therefore it's the right thing to do. Just because everybody feels something doesn't mean that it's the truth. Just because everybody doesn't believe something doesn't mean it's the truth. The truth is the truth, whether or not everybody does it, whether or not one person does it. So the appeal to the majority. The next one is called ad hominem. It's a really weird name. This is when you're in an argument and instead of having a back and forth and talking about it like two human beings, and instead of, defending your argument based on logical facts, you just attack the other person that you're arguing with. So you would say like, oh, you feel this way about that? Well, you're ugly, or you're stupid, or just something that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. And you feel like you just won the argument because you attacked the person, not the argument that that person was making. This one happens a lot right now on all sides of every issue. Let's not fall into this one. If we're going to have a discourse about a topic, let's have it be about the topic, not about the person saying the topic. It's not helpful. Doesn't help any of us like each other. Doesn't help our brains work. It's being intellectually lazy on every way. So, and if you wanted to disregard me right there, you would point out the grammatical error I just used. Okay, last but not least is the straw man. And this is if ad hominem is politics, what they use the most. This would probably be what you see in social media the most. And this is the one that I spent the most time with in college. The straw man fallacy is basically you'd rather knock over a straw man than a O-lineman. So you're making an argument as flimsy as possible in order to win more easily. So the first step would be ignoring the real argument at hand. The second step would be creating a pretend argument that seems like that, but not really. Then you defeat the pretend argument, and then you say, well, I won the argument. So in my college logic class, we had to spend an entire semester. Our professor assigned each of us one side of a very heated issue. You didn't get to pick the issue. You were just given a piece of paper that said the issue. You had to spend an entire semester building this issue up to its very strongest, most logical win in court type of situation. And everybody was nervous about this because the issues were all heated and they were all things that we all felt deeply about with our personal convictions. I was assigned on that day in class to be the person who had to argue at the end of the semester in front of the class against the person on the opposite side. I had to argue pro-choice. I actually cried because it was something that I felt very strongly about, and I didn't want to spend an entire semester building up the case for something that I didn't believe in. I asked my professor if I could switch. He said no. And so I spent an entire semester building up the case for abortion. I will tell you that I learned something significant from this. I learned not to succumb to the straw man fallacy. Because yes, I could have just gotten into a debate with somebody at the beginning of the semester based on what I thought that I already knew. But after spending an entire semester creating the strongest possible O-lineman, 500-pound, best person in football argument for this thing, if I could defeat that guy, if I could get past that guy and sack the quarterback, that's actually winning an argument. So at the end of the semester, I got up in front of the class. I built the strongest case that I could for abortion that I spent the whole time. Did it change my mind? Do I believe differently now? No, I still have the same opinion that I did back then about it, but I was able to not just go into a room with somebody who may be pro-choice and say, well, you're pro-choice, that means you hate babies and want to kill them all. Because I learned that that's a straw man argument. You cannot ever have a discourse with somebody who disagrees with you based on a straw man argument. You cannot go into a room with somebody who is pro-choice and say, you hate babies and you want to kill them all. You have to build their argument up to the highest that you can and then have a debate based on thinking that they may be a person who has reasons for believing what they do other than that straw man thing. This ability to make an argument in this way has probably been one of the most helpful things in my life. I don't just go into any situation thinking that the other person has nothing to say, that they don't know something that I don't know. It would be better for all of us to go into any discussion assuming that there may be something. Jordan Peterson says this in one of the chapters of his books. Assume that the person you're talking to knows something that you may not know. Go into every conversation that way. That doesn't mean that you have to change all your beliefs, but it might help the world if you could get into a conversation with someone who isn't exactly like you and have an actual conversation based on facts that isn't just relying on the weakest version of an argument. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. That is true. That doesn't change the fact that the truth is the truth. And sometimes you can't prove the truth. Sometimes you have to be able to say, you know what? There's no way that I can prove this beyond a shadow of a doubt. And that's where, faith comes in and beliefs, and people can really believe that their perspective is right. And I'm not here to tell anybody that their perspective isn't right. I am here 3 weeks before an election in the most polarized environment I've ever seen, just kind of pleading with people to not be intellectually lazy. I don't care if you think exactly how I do. I'm not trying to get you to go and convince your neighbors to change their mind on anything. I am just saying, let's not be intellectually lazy. Let's look at all of our beliefs so that maybe tonight when we go to sleep, we can say, you know what? I believe what I believe. It's the same thing I did yesterday, and I didn't come to those beliefs by being intellectually lazy and clicking on a Kardashian asking them what they think. So it's very possible I could lose lots of followers for this, and I don't care. Just my PSA for the day. Bye.